get a second for that or no?
No.
All right. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everybody here. I did not get a chance to say hello to everybody individually. I only have 6 people on my screen because if I do add more of you guys, I won't be able to see the PowerPoint. So just if you have a question, you can either put it in the chat box or you can feel free to just unmute your microphone. And I think we all are able to, kind of keep that decorum going. So, Quisenberry, you can go ahead and go to the next slide for me. Okay, so you guys should have gotten a preview of the agenda before the start of class. I said start of class. You can tell what my mind is, but before the start of our meeting, I think it was sent out probably a week prior or a week prior. So at this time, I do want to call for an motion to approve the agenda. Is there anyone who will second that motion?
So moved.
Okay. Was that
Mr. Montrose was made the motion and you need a second.
okay.
This is Tanya. I'll second it.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. All right. So motion approved. Is there anyone, I guess, do we do a negative or an nay? All right. So this moving along pretty quick. I like this. All right. So like I said, you guys should have gotten a preview of the agenda. So let's go to the next slide. If there are no objections. Okay. So the last meeting that we had, I know I don't have to read everything verbatim, but I do want to just kind of specify that we did, just to recap, we appointed a president and our chairman, and we appointed a vice chairman. We also discussed possibility of revising the mission statement, as well as reviewing some concerns that Ms. Giovanelli may have had about a particular book. But I just wanted to see if you guys want to go ahead and approve the minutes. So motion to approval of the minutes for last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right.
So
Motion approved.
Mr. Montrose did the motion and Daniela Dye did the second.
All right, so we're going to talk about the mission statement a little bit later, but right now this is the current mission statement that we have, and that is to advise the school board by recommending approaches to obtaining improved student achievement for all students through a coherent, rigorous academic course of study that provides the tools necessary to succeed in today's society. Emphasis will be placed on the dynamic development of a K-12 curriculum within a safe environment, leading to both career technical majors, the methods of instruction used to implement it, and the assessment of its effectiveness, together with a complementary professional development program to support it. So that is our current mission statement right now. So we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Ms. Quisenberry. So I guess, is this the point where I seek public comment? Do we have anyone from the public?
I'm going to look to Helen. Helen, do we have anybody outside of our committee here tonight?
And if so, if you are, just call answer present. Okay, so I'll take that as an assumption that we probably do not. But if someone does come late, then just make a note of that, I guess. And then I guess we have our board member report from Ms. Giovanelli. Did Ms. Giovanelli end up getting on with us?
She's not here yet. So when she enters the meeting, we can just get back to that part of the agenda if you would like.
Okay, yeah, we can just push that towards the end. And then I guess with the math and textbook adoption is the next thing we're going to be talking about. So I guess if you, Ms. Quisenberry or Ms. Houchin, Ms. Alivato, if you guys want to take that over, you can.
So far, we have started our math textbook adoption for K-12. We trained them on the standards. I believe that was like 2 days last week and a little bit of the process. Today, the high school teachers came in and did the publisher presentations. Tomorrow will be middle school, and I believe the following day is elementary. So we're on our way to looking at what the publishers have to offer. And then I put on this slide, like how many teachers, administrators, community members, and if there are any students that we have on each committee. And Candace is going to walk you through the adoption rubric, and that is a link at the title, Bethany.
Yep. Do you want to go back though? I see that Miss Giovanelli just entered. Or do you want to wait?
Yeah, we can do that. How you doing, Ms. Giovanelli? Oh, you can mute your microphone.
I'm sorry. Can't see either. I'm doing this on my phone, so I apologize. I'm in 2 meetings at once, so I'm double booked tonight, so I apologize. Where are you at on the agenda?
Go ahead.
We did public comment, and we had no public here tonight, and so we're at the board member report, but we could move ahead and give you a moment if you want.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I apologize. I was having a little bit of technical problems tonight. So what Dr. Quisenberry has up on the screen is the rubric that Lee County utilizes for our math textbook adoption. And we actually build our rubric based upon all of the state's requirements. So I'm going to actually take over sharing for just a second, Dr. Q, and pull up a couple of things on the state website that I think is very important for you guys to see as well. Because we don't just start with components of what's important to us. We have state statutes that guide our work, and we need to make sure we're ensuring that we're meeting all of the legislative requirements as well. So this page here is the Florida Department of Education. It's their instructional materials page, and everything that we do is centered around the work that is here. This is also a great resource for you guys that will make sure we capture inside of our notes so you can reference back to it. That goes over what are all of the policies and procedures. What are all of the statutes involved? While there are 2 that we utilize often, it's a state board rule and then statute 1006.4. If I actually open up this link, you'll see there's a lot more statutes that guide the work. So it's important when we're talking about the process that we are following all the pieces legislatively as well. In here also is the cycles. So when we adopt which materials. So since we are in the 21-22 school year right now, we're looking at the K-12 materials for mathematics. I'm going to close out that tab. The state page has on there a list of core questions for a rubric, and you'll see that they have the content and they break it down to very specific pieces as well. They have presentation and learning, and they finish there. And this is what they use to guide when they're reviewing materials. So we look at that document as well and build our local rubric directly off of the state rubric. So those are 2 pieces there. But then there's a third document that's really important to us here that lays out all of the specifications. So every year the state comes out with specifications of what it is that publishers need to be doing and what it is that we should be looking for when we're reviewing these materials. And it tells us what we're bidding for. So which areas, if you notice, math, K-5, but then as we start to get into the upper level 9-12 courses, what math classes publishers can actually put out textbooks for. And that's what we review the materials on. So as Lori started with High School Met Today, today was the first round of high school presentations. So publishers for each of these courses here presented to our teams. And that's the initial stage of the textbook adoption. So those are all the pieces that govern us at the state level. Now, when we actually look at the local level, though, we take those pieces and we start to build out what it is we're going to focus in on. So it's broken into 6 categories. This first category is all about content. And everything that deals with content, you'll notice, is going to be talking about the standards. And I'll make that just a little bit larger. It is linked inside that PowerPoint as well, that got sent out to you. So if you're following along, you can access the same link as well. And Lori or Bethany, if you wouldn't mind dropping the link in the chat as well for anybody who may need it. You'll see that we look at the best standards. So the first thing, everything we do, everything that drives our work are those standards. So once we know we're in line with legislation, we're following what the DOE says, now we start to drill in. And we want to make sure that the resources we are recommending for adoption align to the standards that are there. And so this first category is going to be all about content. It's all driven by the materials. Now, this next piece is pretty important as well. It's digital materials. So what it is that our teachers need and our students need to be successful in a digital environment. And that's more than just having the resources available to us. Now, I think Dr. Quisenberry spoke to this once before, is we had one of our textbooks, our science textbook, where we did not have digital resources. And as we went into lockdown and the pandemic, we realized how important it became. But it's more than just having the textbook available online. It's how are the students engaging with those materials? What's available for the teacher to engage in those materials digitally? Our third category is about assessment. So both formative assessment that allows for a check-in of students' understanding, in addition to summative assessment. So those are the 2 areas you see there. And then inside, a lot of times, it's not a one size fits all. So it's really important for teachers to be able to customize the assessments for their students' needs. So you'll see that area as well. The fourth category is about instruction. So this is about the actually delivery, and are there best practices that are in these resources, and what are they tied to when they say they're best practices? And then format. Sometimes textbooks, resources can be very overwhelming. So everything's scattered all over the place for both our teachers and our students, making it hard for it to be utilized in a manner which meets everybody's needs. So format becomes very important. You'll notice here as well, it's clear, concise items. We're looking for resources provided to support our ELL learners. We're looking for vertical alignment. So when we're talking about format, that's some of the areas. And then always built in, we're looking for teacher support. So this is like on-demand professional development. So as the teachers get these resources, we will provide training through the adoption process and when we onboard, but what's built in, what is the built-in pieces that are available there. So this is our full rubric, what you have here. Our teachers have been in, as we said today, was our very first round of publishers. They do not use this full rubric with every single textbook. Part of the process is to develop a priority rubric. So we did evening training last week where the teams of teachers actually went through each of these categories and they highlighted what are the 2 most important things out of these blue high level categories that are important in content that we need to be focused in on every single time. They did that for digital materials. Same thing with assessment. And we come down to a smaller rubric that we call a priority rubric. And that priority rubric is what's utilized to evaluate the textbooks. We have a conversation around those priority rubrics and the evaluation, and then we begin discussion. So same way we do consensus here of a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. We do that as we work through publishers and say, this publisher is not a great fit for Lee County, and here's why. Once we get down to 2 or 3 publishers, that's where this full rubric actually comes into play. And the teams, the committee members, because we have community on there this year, we have students on there this year, administrators and teachers. So all of those stakeholders will sit down with those 2 to 3 publishers. They'll go to one lesson and they'll evaluate it all the way through utilizing this full rubric that we have. And this is what really drives the work for them getting to a place where they make a recommendation of, here is the resource we would like to recommend for adoption. So I'm going to stop there for a second because I gave a lot of information, and open it up for questions. And then we also have an activity because we'd like to be able to get some feedback from you. And I think I saw Daniela's hand up.
Yeah, I had a question with the teacher's review. I'm at soccer practice, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to stay muted as long as possible, and it's a little loud in the background. But I wanted to find out if the teachers are reviewing the same lesson, and is the lesson provided by the publisher, or is it a lesson that they've been able to view the whole text and decided which lesson they were going to use? So is every teacher reviewing the same lesson, and where did the lesson derive from?
So we get the full textbook. The publishers actually provide us a student edition all the way through, as well as teacher materials. So when it normally gets down to 2 to 3, Daniela, they choose, we'll pick usually a standard of like, here's a really important mathematical skill. It's a foundation skill that if the students do not have this underlining work of, I'm going to say multiplication in elementary school, what does that look like across all of those textbooks, from the conceptual understanding to being able to represent it to having it in a word problem. And the teachers can actually decide what lesson they're viewing. They have access to the entire textbook though, the entire process. So right now, the online platforms are open for everybody, and we can add that to the notes even for you guys if you would like to see those resources. They're open to all of the teachers in the district, all of our community members, but it's really the committee that will decide. They'll pick out lessons, and they may pick out multiple lessons of, okay, how does this one publisher present the mathematics? How does this company, how when we look across, present fractions at those pieces? How is graphing? So it's up to those committee, but everything is done based upon this rubric. Does that answer that, or do you have a follow-up from it? Okay. So what we'd like to do is spend a couple minutes so for you guys to be able to actually take a look at this, but then work in teams. We're going to put you on 2 groups, just random groups, group A, group B. When you're in those teams, select one person to be your recorder and somebody to share of, I notice, I wonder. So is there any other wonderings that you have regarding our adoption rubric? And I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all your faces again and get you the information you need. But we'll just spend 5 minutes in there. So I see that Dr. Q put in the chat the rubric. So you're going to want to make sure you have access to that. And I'm also going to drop the link for you. And everyone. You guys want to go ahead and open the link I just put in there. It's just to a Google Doc. And it's just, I notice, I wonder activity, because we gave you a large rubric to look at ahead of time. But this will be the work the teachers are engaged in all of this week and next week when we enter deliberation. So again, gonna go out to 2 groups, a group A, a group B. spend 5 minutes, pick somebody who will record for you guys, and then we'll come back and share or have any other follow-up questions. Any questions about that? Because I'm going to go ahead and open up those breakout rooms. Okay, see you guys back here in 5 minutes then.
Do you want us to join one, Candace?
No, I didn't assign us to one. And you can actually pause recording because we can't record the activity with us. So we're just going to take a minute or two, seeing where we're at. And we'll start with group A. And I believe Daniela was in that group, and Melissa and Andrea, but I'm not sure who the facilitator or recorder was. So whoever that was, if you kind of unmute your mic and come up with any questions that you guys still have, I do have your notes up on the screen and we can answer those.
We switched our letters.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so sorry. So group A then, I guess Melvin's group was group A, yes?
Yeah. I was the scorer for the group.
And any notice or wonders that you would like us to answer about the textbook rubric?
But one of the wonders was answered. But there is another question a wonder that was asked, and that is, what is the accepted score for textbook adoption through the rubric? So you have a scale from blank 0 to 100. What is the score that is needed by the team in order for you guys to say we're going to go with this textbook or we're going to adopt it?
So we don't actually have a threshold, Melvin, of like it has to at least meet this to be the minimum. The teams really, as they're scoring it and what they come out, we show what those ratings are, but they direct their conversations around which one of these best supports our need as a district. But I couldn't actually give you an end, like here's the bottom threshold. I know for our ELA process that we went through last year, it was in the upper 80s, low 90s for our materials that were recommended forward. So it is generally high, but there is not a minimum threshold.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anything else from Group A?
The only other thing was that we also noticed that Dave noticed that it takes into account the new Florida best standards to help with compliance. So that's a big step forward.
Yes, and part of our training this year for textbook adoption was actually on those standards, because that will be one of the pieces that we're working on through the spring and the summer, is to train our teachers on the best standards. So those selected and are working on the textbook adoption committee actually receive training prior to this on what those standards call for and what to look for. So thank you, Group A. We appreciate the feedback. So now moving to Group B. Do I have the facilitator or whoever would like to unmute and share with us any additional questions, noticings, or wonderings that you had?
So we were kind of wondering, well, one thing we wondered that was in there, which was cool, was how the textbook would be adopted for, English language learners. And so we noticed that was part of the rubric. So that was nice. And then we were wondering a little bit about remedial support for students and teachers who need that, and how that will be incorporated. There was some verbiage in there, but we were just looking for more information, I think.
Yeah, so there's the one small section, you're right, that's in there. A lot of times that's something that we look at when we then start to pair our materials together, of what supplements do we have to support students' gaps and what is additional with those materials. So right now in K-8, we have iReady, which is adaptable for individual student needs, that they're working on individualized paths to close some of those gaps. In high school for our algebra and and geometry, we do use ALEX. So those are our 2 additional supplemental pieces, because it is very hard to find a resource that does all of those pieces. A lot of times, though, that is something teachers are looking for, but you're right, it just has that one piece in the rubric there. Anything else from Group B?
Candace, do you want to answer the question of how we purchase adopted material?
Sure, absolutely. So every year the state provides us funding. They give us a pot of money for instructional materials, and that has to be for all of our instructional materials, whatever is up for adoption, plus any renewal of materials. We are in one of the legislation pieces that guide our work. We are required to utilize up to 50% of that money on the textbooks for adopted. So it says you can only expend this amount of money on non-adopted resources. So a lot of times, just for instance, if you were following our ELA textbook adoption last year, it was close to $14 million for K-12, all of our resources. The state does not give us $14 million to be able to purchase those. So it usually comes in less. So each year we only get that one pot of money, and they say you only can spend up to 50% on non-adopted. But we make sure we go through this process and we utilize our dollars on those adopted resources, because if you went back to our list earlier, we're adopting K-12. So we utilize all the money coming in from the state. But again, that's also legislative. So when we think back to those state statutes, it's outlined for us in statute how much money we're able to spend on non-adopted pieces, which I think Lori's actually going to talk a little bit later on about core resources and supplemental resources. So what we're adopting right now are core resources. So this one just wraps up where we're at with our committees. So we've talked that through. Right now we are in publishers. Next week we will be doing deliberation. For any of you on here or anyone out in our community, we provide an opportunity for additional input during board public comment when we do our briefing, and when these are also up for public hearings. So on our website, instructional materials, and we'll ask Helen to capture in our notes as well, it has the actual timeline of how we follow through the process, and you'll be able to see exactly when we will do board presentations. We will bring this to this committee first. We usually look for this committee to also support the recommendation and support the process before we bring it to the board. So we will continue to keep you guys up to date as to where we are on our math textbook adoption. So we're very excited. We have 3 students joining us this year, 2 from high school, 1 from middle school. So it'll be great. You'll get to hear their perspective as well. It's always wonderful when our teachers and our community members get to hear our student voice in this process as well. So that is just where we are at right now with the math textbook adoption. So thank you.
So we're ready. Can we move forward? So I guess we're back now. We're going to the statement review.
Melvin, I had a question.
Yes,
I don't know
ma'am.
if I'm following the procedure, but about the math book, textbook adoption and supplemental materials. Ms. Candace said they would talk about it later, or is it? I guess I had a concern about iReady for middle school being used as a resource. I was curious, I think based on experience that IXL is an excellent math resource, supplemental resource, better than iReady based on experience, because the IXL, it's kind of adaptive with the problems it gives you. And if a student gets something wrong, it shows them what they got wrong. And I didn't see that being done with iReady. And for the middle school age as well, iReady is very cartoonish, and they tell all these stories before they get to the business. That might be something more entertaining for elementary, maybe K through 5, but a lot of the middle school students complain. And I've also talked with middle school math teachers about the iReady.
Well, Julian, what we're gonna do is Miss I believe Miss Houchin is probably gonna address that
Okay,
after we do the mission statement review. So it's on the agenda. We'll
okay,
about that specifically with the supplementary versus the required text. So
okay.
your voice will be heard on that.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
And
So moving forward to
Um,
the mission statement, I'm sorry.
the next part actually on the agenda is the materials and use objection form. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then it goes, the mission statement is after that. I should go all the way back to the agenda. So we just did textbook adoption, and so now we're here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
You know
yeah,
what,
yeah,
that's
no
it. This is
worries.
the first time we've used the PowerPoint in leading it. We didn't do this last year, so note to self, we need to put Lori, when we're creating this, I think we should put the agenda every couple of slides to go back to the agenda. Okay, so the next piece is, in our last meeting, we had some questions about, I believe Ms. Giovanelli actually brought it up about what is the process for challenging materials. So meaning that if you're a parent and your child brings home a library book, this is just an example, brings home maybe a library book, and maybe there are some pieces in the book that are questionable to you. How do you challenge that book being in that media center? How do you report that to the principal and to the district? So I am going to go through what that process looks like. And I don't know why I stopped sharing when I was the one who was doing it. So there is a material and use objection process. It's actually called the challenge right here, the challenge to instruction and or media material in use. And then there was a process that goes along with it. But first I wanted to show you how you can find it. So you can find it in two different places on our Lee Schools website. The first place, and you'll get this piece of the PowerPoint, we'll send it back out with the notes. Ms. Helen will send it to all of you, but you'll go to the district, departments, academic services. If you just follow through here, it'll take you to this. Click here and it'll take you to the form. Another way to find it, because it is part of the Parent Bill of Rights, on our Lee Schools website, there's a banner, meaning, at the top of the website, some of the important pieces scroll through. It's one of those pieces that scrolls through as the banner. It says Parent Bill of Rights. You click on learn more. You can scroll down, and same thing, the actual form is located there. And I thought.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can we use that for, I know you did say printed materials in the library. Can that also be used for classroom materials?
Yes.
Or any of the materials that are for the curriculum as a whole, anything that's a material?
Correct. That's why it's called, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Instructional or media material. So it's anything that we use for instruction. When I say we, anything that's used in the district for instruction, or anything that is in the media centers as well. This would be the process that we would follow. And Candace, can you drop the process into the chat box as well? And then in a minute, I'll pull up the actual, oh, it's right here. Yay, I knew I had it somewhere. So this is the actual form. So the citizen or the parent would go through, and if it is something that they know is in a school, maybe in a classroom or in that media center at that school, like the example that I shared, they would put the actual school. If it's something that they believe, like maybe it's the math instructional materials that they believe in is multiple schools, and they would put Lee County School District. And then they would complete these pieces. Why have they brought the materials? What do you believe is the theme or purpose? And so then they would just go through and answer all of these. And the first point of contact would be the school principal. So in the case that it is something for the entire district, then it would be submitted directly to one of the curriculum, Candace, Lori, or myself, one of the curriculum directors. But the first point of contact is the principal of the school. So they would first fill this piece out and then follow the process. This will also be posted on the website. We wanted to bring it to this committee first to get feedback. And then once we have feedback and we make any adjustments that might be needed, then we'll post it out on the website as well. So as you can see, this process was created back in 2015, but it has not been reviewed in quite a while. So that's where we're coming in tonight, and we've been reviewing this with our principals as well as with our curriculum staff. So as I said, they would fill out the challenge and they would submit it to the school principal, and then the school principal will submit it to whichever of the directors. So if it's elementary, it would come to me. If it's high school, it would go to Candace. And then we have 10 days once we receive it to call our committee. So there is a challenge to materials committee, and it consists of one of each of these members. So the director of curriculum, a level principal. So if it's elementary material, there would be an elementary level principal on the committee. The ELA coordinator for that, again, for that level. The district lead media specialist. So we have a district contact that oversees all of our media specialists in the district. And then a school-based media specialist, a representative from curriculum advisory. So one of you would be asked to serve on this committee, and then a representative from the equity and diversity board committee as well. So each member will read whatever it is that's being challenged, and then will be trained and go through this process, ensuring that they're following state statute, professional reviews, age and maturity, theme of material, all of these pieces. And then I think one important thing to point out is that a committee member shall not be selected from the school that the challenge is coming from. So if a citizen or a parent is challenging something that's happening in one of the classrooms or in that media center, that principal or that classroom teacher or that media specialist would not be able to be on this committee for what's the word I'm looking for? Conflict of interest, excuse me. So then the committee will meet, and we meet once a month and go through all of those pieces of processes. And then we will deliberate. And then the chief academic officer, who is Dr. Spiro, will then send the information back to whoever challenged, as well as the school board in writing and the host school or multiple schools if it went to multiple schools. Okay, so that was a lot of information, and I apologize. So I Candace put this process document into the chat. So I'm going to give you about 1 minute to pull it up and kind of go through it, because if you're like me, I have to read it myself. And then the other thing that I'm going to put in the chat is the link to a Padlet. And if you are on your phone and you can't pull up the chat, you can also use the QR code, which is here. So if you just use your phone, well, you're on your phone, you can't see the chat, you might not be able to see that either, but you can use the QR code, or you can go into that link. And inside of the Padlet, what I would like for everyone to do is provide feedback on the Padlet. On the bottom, it looks like this. You should have a little plus sign. You're going to click on the plus, type in your feedback, and then it'll post on here. Candace, can you do an example so they can see it? But we want pluses or deltas, and then any additional questions that you might have as far as that process goes. Oh, there's my plus sign. There you go, sample. Okay, so I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes for you guys to go ahead and put in any feedback. And if I had music, I would play it for you, but I'm not that prepared, so I apologize.
And Bethany, is there a possibility, because I do think that it might be more beneficial to take this up at the next our meeting?
We can.
get people to
Yep.
look at revision?
Absolutely. So what the next steps was going to be is that we would then take this form, make whatever adjustments or take into consideration those pieces of feedback. And then we would discuss it again at the next meeting. Yes.
Okay.
So we can put it on the agenda again.
Because I just like to have a little
Yep.
bit more time for everybody to kind of look at it and give it more scrutiny to
Absolutely.
change.
I'm sorry, I got to rise to a point of order here. I'm not certain that this is within the scope of sunshine law. I know at the school board meeting last week, there was talk about using chat boxes in committee meetings, and I'm a little bit concerned with, using this method.
Yep. We took that into consideration. That's why I'm sharing it. That's why it's on the screen right now, so that everyone can see what it is you guys are putting in. Like normally a Padlet is, separate, and then you wouldn't be able to see it in the recording. But because I'm sharing my screen, then the public will be able to see. And it's
Okay,
only,
so that
meets it. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
And
that.
then
though.
also with it, just to add as well, we'll capture it and put it in the agenda minutes. So it'll be an archived record. So once tonight is ended, this link won't be accessed again. So it's only for this time. It'll capture exactly what's here as well. So great question though.
And I'm loving this feedback. Some of these pieces that have come up, they're great. I hadn't thought of some of these pieces. So thank you very much. So as Chair Melvin said, we will put it on the agenda again. And so then we'll make sure you already have the document, but we'll send it again with the minutes. We'll send, as Candace said, this piece with the minutes as well, so that you guys have a little bit more time to be able to process, and then we can talk about it again next week. But thank you very much for your feedback.
So can we formally move to table this until the next meeting? Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay. All right. So moving.
And then I believe Miss Giovanelli, is she still on the call? Miss Giovanelli had a specific example that she wanted us to review. And so if Lori can just have a second to show that specific example and how that process would look.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lori.
So Ms. Giovanelli sent several copies of the text for, because this is recorded for copyright reasons, I just did a couple of them for educational purposes. You can do a few, but not the whole text. And so on the left-hand side, and I'm not sure if a parent and or teacher or school sent this to Ms. Giovanelli. She might could shed some more light. But this is a book that when we researched it, it is in multiple libraries, elementary, middle, and high school. And the student has ADHD. And so it's from the perspective of that child, whose mom on the left, you'll see the mom has a drinking issue. So So that was concerning. And then if depending on the age of the students getting the book. And then on the right, where it's highlighted is this student is not very sensitive to students who are in ESE. You might know that as special education. And it had a few references about, in this case, it's spastic kids. It had another reference that they were in like a special room, rode a special bus, was some of the text. So, so those were the things that when I read, I was like, okay, so to me, this was the concern. So in a case like this, no one filed a complaint formally. But if we were using this as an example and someone filed a complaint formally, if this was being taught in the classroom, like a teacher is using this to teach students, then that holds a little more weight than if this is in a library where students have the ability to check the book out. But still, depending on the age of the student, you would look to see whether it was approved or not. So they would take something like this and they would spell out what the objection is. If the objection is drinking and or the reference to the exceptional student education or both, they would fill that out and then we would know what action. So if this came through that this would not be something that we would want students checking out in the library at a certain age, the committee might say that. The committee might say that they want to pull completely from all libraries, that they think it's offensive, that can pull it from all libraries. So they would take a look at the rulings and the statutes. The one that would be an immediate pull is anything that describes a sexual act is definitely, because that's considered pornographic, that would be an immediate pull. So there's, quite a few things that we would take a look at, but we would look at what statutes are in play. That makes it a lot easier to pull when it does violate a statute. Ms. Giovanelli, is there anything that you wanted to add to this example?
Actually, it was just a parent that gave that to me out of concern. They're actually a teacher, but so they wanted to be discreet because they didn't want to get, it wasn't about getting someone in trouble. However, the teacher gave it to her son, who is ADHD, to read, and it was a concern. The mother was very concerned over the mother read the book that she was actually reading with her son as well, and I believe he is in middle school. I believe it was middle school. So for me, it was, what's the process? So you identified that today. That's awesome. I love it because we have to have checks and balances, right? So and so that's what it was, just a perfect opportunity for me to bring it to this committee and start from scratch and then and work through that process. So I just appreciate the expertise here.
And thank you for bringing it to our attention. And we certainly want to, and teachers should always vet like whatever is being considered in the classroom. But yeah, so this would be our process. So if someone, put this forward in this form, then this would be, we would look at it through all those different lenses. So I thought it was perfect that you wanted information on it and that she actually had a text that we could take a look at.
Thank you.
And then one of the things that Melvin asked me to go over, and these are live links that are sent to you, but these are our adopted materials. So each of those links are our adopted materials. So that means that they went through the full adoption process. And we've been doing textbook adoption and we've been on this journey for over 10 years. When I first came to the district, different schools had different books. But now you'll see that the English teachers, the elementary may have a different book than middle, and middle may have a different book than high, but it's in common by level for each of the areas. And then that application reference guide are all of the different digital applications that the district provides. And so there are anything that's not on that a school may have purchased. It is not something that the district purchased, but we're even trying to tighten that up somewhat. I know, I believe Ms. Harris mentioned IXL. So some schools do purchase IXL. It's not a district purchase. And they purchase that and provide that for their students. We try to avoid outside digital purchases that require teachers or students to have their own separate accounts because they're not as safe for students. People can, outside the district, can enter into online chats sometimes. So we're very cautious about that. And so before they're allowed to spend funds, those applications are supposed to go through a vetting process to make sure that A, it's going to meet the needs of the students, but B, that it's safe for students and teachers to be on that account. So a lot of different things go into play, but Melvin wanted me to kind of talk about of that. And then the very next slide is we have this adopt adapt. And so because we have a lot of mobility in our districts, which means students are moving from one school to another school, we make our teachers, we don't make, but we do require them to follow the scope and sequence of the standards within a week or two, right? So that if I have a student that I'm teaching and that student goes to Melvin, then Melvin can say, well, okay, we're teaching the same thing or the same standards. And so I should be assured that Lori has already taught this standard, and this standard. And then Melvin can just pick up from there. So that's what we ask that they follow the scope and sequence. We provide instructional guides, which are backwards design lesson plans, and teachers can use those and they can adapt them to, pick and choose out of there what they need, but it aligns to the scope and sequence. And everything that's in the instructional guides are vetted by our team. So there's no outside applications. There's nothing that we haven't had our eye on. And there's nothing that should get any teacher with an objection to the material. So it's, and they're very well done too. They really give a lot of resources and get a lot of support for students who are struggling, and a lot of enrichment for students who are really have a good handle on the standards and need more, right? So, so that's kind of our adopt and adapt.
Mm-hmm. And Jewel, if you want to have a separate conversation about iReady specifically, I mean, I'm elementary, but we've been using iReady for quite some time. Middle school, this is their second year. And so Lori and I would love to have that conversation with you at any time. We can reach out to you.
Most definitely. Thank you.
And then I think Melvin is up for your mission statement.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I just wanted to kind of modernize or modify the mission statement a little bit. Everyone should have gotten a copy of that, of the mission statement and the revision suggestion. Pretty much, I just wanted to see if we could alleviate some of the verbiage, such as dynamic, because dynamic can be subjective, and also have more inclusion of all the stakeholders, because in the direction of this advisory committee, we do have parents, we do have district directors, we do have people who work in the teachers. So, and we do have college professors. So that's why I use the term stakeholders. So I just wanted to see if you guys had a moment, or I can open the floor for any questions on that if you guys have any questions.
Melvin, I really appreciate you taking the time to make some updates there. And I think it's really good. The only thing that I do have a question about is the very last where we say ensuring students preparedness as future contributors to a post-secondary society. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, what really is the goal, ensuring students' success, like in school, while they're in school, versus their success after, just like questioning that, I guess.
No, that's a great question, Felicia. So I read the original mission statement, and I noticed that twice it was mentioned that that provides tools necessary to succeed in today's society. So, and then also leading to both career and technical majors. So, so my thought process was just kind of combining both of those, because both of them do kind of discuss that idea of preparing students in that way. So it was more so of a summary of those two thoughts or ideas. So that's why I just used the term post secondary contributors to society.
I agree with, I actually had the same questions as she did. I felt like it was a summary of trying to get that effectiveness and the career and technical majors and bringing all of that together. I just wonder if there was a way to maybe simplify the simplification a little bit, maybe make it a little bit more clear, because I do get the point by seeing them both side by side. Had I not seen them side by side, I don't know I would have got that from the message. I don't at this point have a suggestion for you. And I know it's terrible to critique something without a suggestion to make it better, but I wonder if that particular part we can maybe work on a resolution for.
Okay, I am open to, this is something else we can also table. I didn't necessarily bring it, it doesn't have to be we need to change it right then, right now situation. So it's just kind of giving you guys a visual of what I'm thinking, because I do feel like we just need to modify the mission statement and make it more inclusive. If there's, debate on that, then, feel free to critique it. So Danielle, of course, I appreciate your feedback. So if anyone wants to make a motion to, table or suspend, then we can do that for the next, we can take it up the next meeting. Or if there's continue debate. Yes, Julian.
I had one comment about it. I think it's great, and I kind of agree with the other two young ladies. One other thing I would say that you could, if you want to make it less wordy, I think it's a given that the mission is for serving the Lee County School District. Maybe that's one way to remove some wording. Maybe you can be specific Lee County School Board, but the Curriculum Advisory Committee is an extension of the, something district related. And maybe that would make room for maybe one or two words to kind of explain the post-secondary society. The other concern I had too is the way I'm a technical writer, scientist, so sometimes I have to put things in layman's terms. So not to make it too like eduquise, as they say, and make it where people can, I guess if we don't need $25 words to explain what we're saying, where people can understand, I guess that's where I'm going. But I think it's well written. I would say the post-secondary society is kind of on the eduquise side of things. And then again, like I said about if you wanted to reduce the words, the Lee County School District in there.
Okay, so that was actually my main hope. Was I was trying to shorten it because I did feel like the current one was too long, but looking from left to right, it looks almost the similar length. So what I would recommend, or I would ask is, I'm not sure how the sunshine law works. But if you guys have possible suggestions, to feel free to, or revisions, feel free to email those to me, and we can actually, like, as I said before, take it up at the next meeting, or I can try to put some of you guys' suggestions together. So Daniela, Julene, Felicia, if you see anything, or anyone else, then just send those revisions to me, because my goal is, I do want to shorten it, and I do want to put it in verbiage that is clear to all the stakeholders, and not just use. Julian used a great word. I'm not sure what it was, but I don't want to make it too teacher-esque, so to speak.
So Melvin, what they can do is email Helen, because they can't email you directly, but they can send it to Miss Helen Hernandez.
Okay.
And then she can communicate that with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Quisenberry.
Dr. Rodriguez had her hand up.
Yes,
Okay.
hi Melvin, thank you. I just wanted to also just note that it says this committee will be focused on helping to design effective curriculum. I don't think we'll be actually designing curriculum as much as evaluating it, or advising the school district on choices.
Okay.
And I have a question regarding that. Are we advising the school board, or are we advising the school district? So I think that needs to be clear.
It is a school board advisory meeting, and so things that, like, a lot of the things that we're bringing to you will be briefed before the board, and so you're kind of seeing it ahead of time with Ms. Giovanelli, but so that we get your input prior to briefing them, but it is a board advisory committee.
Melvin, I'll
Honestly-
make a motion to table it if there isn't any other comments, and we could all work on it individually.
I just had one other comment before we, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Personally, if we're talking about shortening it, I think it would be just fine having it as the first sentence and nothing else. Mission statements are supposed to be pretty broad and short, sweet. So I would be happy if it was just the first sentence.
And what I would ask for everyone, like, because Dave, that's a good point, good fair point, is everyone who commented and gave their feedback, as Dr. Quisenberry said, just forward those suggestions over, because I'm trying to write them down to think about it, but it would probably be better for me just to see them. And then you can just forward those suggestions to her, Ms. Hernandez, and then I can look at them, and then I can say, okay, and I can make a revision for you guys to look at. And if you have a revision to do it fully, and if it's something that we can consider in the next meeting, I'll be more than happy to take that up also. The goal is to update the current one that we have, but we want to make sure that it reflects the vision, I guess, that we all share in being members of this curriculum advisory committee. So who asked for a motion to table this? Who tabled?
I believe it was Daniela Guy.
Okay, so I'll second that motion to table it. Are there any objections? Okay. All right, so we can move forward. So the next topic of discussion, and I guess we can open the floor for discussion on this, is the meeting, I guess our next meeting, if it's going to be virtual or if it's going to be in person. I would strongly recommend one or the other. I don't think hybrid would be productive for the committee. If someone has any objections to the idea of maybe we should do hybrid, feel free to share those thoughts. But I would like for us to take a vote on whether or not we are going to meet virtually in our next meeting. Okay. And I guess, do we have somebody that records the votes, or can we just do it by an aye or a nay?
Just point of order, Melvin, we are not allowed to do hybrid. So per the school board attorney, it would have to be one or the other.
Okay. All right.
So Melvin, I think just choose one, and it would be, so say if you wanted to choose face-to-face and people don't want to meet face-to-face, they would do a thumbs down or thumb sideways if they somewhat agree. If they do want to meet face-to-face, they would do a thumbs up. And we would do, from there, I think we'd be able to tell whether or not who wants to meet virtually or vice versa.
Okay, so I'll take it with the idea about the in-person. So let's take a vote real quick. So for a thumbs up, showing that you are in favor of meeting in person. And you said thumbs sideways. Let's do a thumbs down if you do not want to meet in person. All right, so you guys can go ahead and just give which one you're looking for.
I'm special. I just want to make sure I understand. So you have either the choice of meet in person or not. There's no in between.
We don't have a hybrid. We're not able to do what Ms. Houchin just stated. We're not able to do half in person and half hybrid, half virtually. So this vote is just strictly for if you want to meet in person. We can do a vote for virtual, but I just want to kind of see if we will meet in person.
Is it just for the next meeting only, or in perpetuity, or?
I would like to do it from meeting to meeting. So I would, unless there's an objection to that, I would like to do it just pertaining to each meeting that we schedule. So for the next scheduled meeting, which I believe is November the 29th. All right. So let's see. Is there anyone to check for me to see how many thumbs up and thumbs down?
That's why I stopped share screen so we could see everybody at one time.
All right. So everybody give me one more time. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you want the meeting in person or do you not want the meeting in person?
Samantha, I can't tell yours because your name is blocking you. Okay, there we go. I got it. Thank you.
And Helen, I think we need a vote from you. I didn't see one. Did Helen give one?
Helen can't vote as our recording secretary.
Oh,
so-
Helen's the recording secretary. I'm
Yep.
sorry. No, I'm still learning everybody.
And the count, did you guys get 7 for in person? Is that what you got, 7?
4, 5, 6.
You got
I have 6, but I think I missed the bottom. I didn't see Brian or Daniela.
Brian,
That would be 7 then.
Daniela was down, yeah,
So that would be 7. You're correct, Lori.
7.
Of course it was 7 because that means it's 7 to 7.
I knew that was gonna happen.
Epic fail.
Well, I didn't cast a vote.
Oh,
Yeah.
I counted you as 7. You get a vote.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I didn't decide
Which
if I
means
was thumbs up or not.
I counted you. So that would mean there's 14 of you and 7. So if
Oh,
you vote for, it would be, so you're the deciding factor. You get to be the one way
Okay.
or the other, sir.
As of right now,
No pressure.
that is a lot of pressure. So I'll tell you what, just to respect, since everyone's able to do it virtually right now, let's go virtual for the next meeting. And we'll be able to, we can change later for the future meetings, but the next meeting, let's go virtually.
The virtual is very convenient because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm working on a project for work. And if I had to meet in person, I wouldn't have made it today.
I'm just happy that I can work with all of you guys, and hopefully we can do the tough task that is ahead of us. So do I need to approve that motion and get a second on that one? Or am I good to go to the good of the order?
Well, Ms. Giovanelli, let's go back. You don't need to vote on it. We just needed a consensus of how to move forward for next time. But Ms. Giovanelli is going to do her board report, and then also Ms. Giovanelli. So we know we're revisiting the mission statement, and we also are revisiting the form, the challenge form. Are there any other topic considerations for us to plan? So when you do your board report, since it is a board advisory, if you have other topics you want us to consider.
I don't. I would like to have a conversation of what topics everyone, kind of collaborate with that and see what y'all recommend. And because being new, this is a whole learning process for me. So I'm just kind of trying to be a sponge. So that's really all I have. I love that the form is going to get, so I can actually print it and look at it, so look at that form a little better. I can advise that parent a little bit more now. So I've learned so much, and I love the conversation around the mission statement. I look forward to the final mission statement at the next meeting. Just to touch on the 29th is actually November is a conference, like a school board conference. So that allows me to be able to attend. So thank you. Because I didn't want to be that deciding factor. So I thought I'd just throw that back out there. So the decision that will allow me, otherwise we're going to get Miss Vaughn. I was going to see if Betsy Vaughn wanted to attend if it was in person. So, there's an opportunity for that another time, but I'm glad I can be at the next meeting. So thank you. That's it.
So Melvin, do you want to generate discussion around interest in topics for us? So we're going to revisit 2, but we're just at the beginning of the year. So to see if it's something that is of interest to Ms. Giovanelli. So if I can write down any suggestions as you call them out.
Okay, so we already have, we're going to, like you said, we're going to revisit the mission statement. We're going to revisit the objection form. I can't think of anything directly at this time, but I will open the floor if anyone has anything that they would like to consider that we can possibly discuss for the next meeting.
I have a few questions about the curriculum and the material objection form. So the example that Ms. Giovanelli had provided for review was a teacher that had provided recommended materials for the child. And I feel like in this aspect, context is extremely important. From an outside perspective, it seems like this book was something that the teacher believed that maybe the student could relate to. And in that sense, the parent didn't agree with the way that it was portrayed. And that's okay. It happens all the time. We had to deal with that with curriculum. My children are mixed race, and we've dealt with that with the curriculum and the material that was provided in school. So my question would be, is there a way to implement, if there is recommended material to the child, for that to be notified to the parent? In this case, it seems like it was, but is that standard practice? I think with a lot of these complaints that have come up recently, context is a huge aspect of the material in question, and I'd like to see that addressed a little bit.
Okay. So is there a specific, I guess it's to shorten for what I guess Ms. Houchin is writing. Is there a specific, like, what, in terms of Daniela, what do you want to just specifically add on there?
I would like to find out more about the procedure used for recommended materials for students.
Okay.
and see if it's applied uniformly throughout the district.
So your
Okay.
question would be more around the process for specific additional material. So let's say another example would be if that student is receiving intervention or extension, how is the family notified that they're receiving something additional outside of the adopted materials?
Exactly. Even if the student tells a teacher, you know, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or a student or a teacher notices a student is struggling with something particular, and it's recommended, oh, this helped me, or this helped another student, give this a try. If that, how that's communicated to the parents so that they can have that communication with their child.
Okay. I think, Melvin, I think I understand what she's asking.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
A lot of notes.
Felicia?
Okay, so I'm new to Florida and, I apologize if I'm opening a can of worms with this question, but so you said if there's sex in the material, it's like an automatic, basically, take that out. But what if it's high school and it's talking about safe sex practices? I work with college students and a lot of them have brought to my attention in high school, they didn't learn a lot about safe sex and it was something they wished they'd had, an opportunity to learn about. So I'm just curious, is it just like all sex is like banned from school?
No, so students who are enrolled in a health course receive, starting in 6th grade up, receive as appropriate. They learn about reproduction and sex. Parents can opt out of that. We have an opt-out form for that. So we're not talking about that. They're talking about pornographic material, which like grossly describes a sexual act. Would not be appropriate to be in our K-12 public schools and is against statute. So that it can mention that the kids,
Laura, your mic's muted.
and well, that's probably good because it's always an uncomfortable subject for me. But so if it's like grossly describing the sexual act, I'm just going to throw out a title. We would not probably want 50 Shades in our libraries in a K-12 public school. So something of that nature is would be subject to be considered pornographic and would be removed based on statute.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Is there anyone else with any considerations to take up for the next meeting?
Melvin, Pamela had her hand up.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just a couple of things. One, I am very passionate about the social emotional learning, and we've talked about that before. Just wondering how, do we have some sort of plan to get it into the curriculum to where every kid is exposed to that kind of material? It's very much needed for, to help with behavior management and being able to teach these kids how to self-regulate. The other concern that I have is really a big thing. And I'm not even sure how it works, how it would, if it's appropriate right now, but it's just about the reading and how the reading is not considered a core subject. And it's really got me concerned. It's got a lot of people concerned, a lot of teachers. The kids don't take it as serious, and it is foundation. I think we would all agree that reading is foundation. So those are the two concerns that I have. So I'll just leave it at that.
I will say that Pamela, with the new BEST standards that for the first time ever, the foundational standards for phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, all of those things are K-12 now. It used to stop at about 2nd or 3rd grade, and then it went into remediation. And now they're part of our standards, part of the English language arts standards, and not just standalone standards in reading now. So we should see some difference.
Now I'm muted. So is there anyone else who would like to bring up anything they would like to consider or anything for the good of the group or good of the order? And I do apologize, but I can't necessarily see you, so some of you guys can.
Hi, this is Samantha. I have my hand up,
Samantha.
but I don't know if you can see me.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, okay, so I just wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, I very much agree in terms of context being important for any literature or anything being taught. I think we really need to consider educational value. And then I'm very concerned with the terminology of social and emotional learning. And if that's something we're going to get into, I think everybody needs to take a deep dive and look at what that is on a deeper level. So I just wanted to express my concern over that in particular. For me, I'm not a supporter of that.
I think that's a great topic to actually put on there is socioeconomical learning, especially since it's been dubbed the new CRT. And it's something that's been a huge concern for many parents. If we can just put that on the board as the topic to consider, that'd be great.
Well, wait a second. You said the first woman, Pamela, said social emotional learning, but you just said social economic learning. So
I'm sorry, social emotional.
Okay,
I'm
I just want to
driving,
make
so
sure.
my E's got mixed.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding and I'm not commenting on the
No.
wrong thing. Okay, thank you. for
You're right.
clarifying that. Okay, thank you.
So just so you know, we can address some of this, but social and emotional learning, that's going to be a different department than curriculum. That's going to fall under student services. So we can have presenters from them, but that falls out of the purview of our department.
When we're talking about implementing it for all of the students as far as an educational basis of understanding, wouldn't that actually fall under the curriculum itself?
It's infused during the student's day. So, but it's not something that curriculum handles, and we don't vet any of it. It is vetted through student services, and they train and all of that for teachers and schools to know how to use it. So where we do the English, math, science, social studies, fine arts, foreign language falls under us, advanced studies falls under us.
So I agree with Pamela in her statement that children need to be able to address their emotional needs and be better equipped in society to be able to handle life. So we have in school now Wellness Wednesdays. We have in school now times and periods where students get involved with guidance counselors, and there is material that is passed around. And I guess I don't understand the breakdown of how, if you're handing out materials or you're implementing this into a daily routine, it's not curriculum.
No, I'm just saying that we would need to ask another department, student services, to join in on our discussion, because they would have the most expertise, because they're the ones who provide the training and choose the curriculum, that kind of thing. So we'd have to partner with them. It doesn't fall under Bethany, Candace, and I, is all I'm saying. Ms. Giovanelli.
And Lori, just real quick.
Wait, Ms. Giovanelli's talking, but she was muted. Hold on.
And let me just add real quick, that book that I brought to the for y'all to look at, that was addressing his behavior. They were trying, I think the teacher was trying to do that through that book, but it was somewhat offensive and not quite what the parent was wanting to, the parent wasn't quite agreeing with it. So, because there were some other things in there about drinking and alcohol and alcoholic parent, so the context of that is what I think you're talking about somewhat. Yes, it's not curriculum, but it is a literature that a student was given. So and it's regarding behavior that teacher was trying to, I don't know, I didn't really read the book, but I think somewhat help them understand their emotions. You know what I mean? So that's just my thought on that. Thank you.
And I just wanted to point out two quick things. Ms. Giovanelli, one of the things I looked at with that book, I looked at the reviews that a lot of people gave on it. So that's one thing that if anyone had any questions on that particular book, look at the review sheets, or go online and look at the reviews. The second thing is, I think if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Houchin, what you were explaining to Daniela is when the Parkland situation happened, all the teachers, we were all required to do X amount of hours for mental health training. That didn't necessarily fall under curriculum for what we were doing. That fell more under the mental health side. Is that, I'm hearing you right? Is that what you were explaining when it comes to social emotional learning?
Yes, just explaining that we would have to ask a different department to partner with us and come to the meeting because we would not have the expertise that they would have to be able to answer your questions.
Okay, so I think we're a little bit over time, about 5 minutes. I look forward to us continuing working. I think this is a great group of people to work together in moving this district forward with curriculum. So one last call for a good of the order. I want to kind of keep that kind of brief. Ms. Giovanelli, you have your hand up. You had a question? Oh, nope. Okay. All right. So just briefly, is there anything anyone else want to add to the good of the order? All right. So the chair calls for an adjournment to the meeting. Can I get a second for that?
Second.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much.
Melvin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just don't want everybody to pull off. Ms. Giovanelli and Melvin, are you able to stay on for just a second?
Sure.
With Lori, Candace, and I, just for us to plan our next. And I believe, is it okay if Brian stays on too, Lori and Candace?
Yes, it is. It would be underneath the sunshine. Nope, it would still be underneath the sunshine because this was a publicized meeting and we're still all on.
So if you guys will just stay on, and then everyone else have a wonderful night. Sorry.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Great meeting.
Have a good night.